Emotional untouchability is often misunderstood. People think it means nothing reaches you, nothing affects you, nothing matters. That is not untouchability. Untouchability means contact no longer equals control. Most people are not hurt by events. They are moved by access. A comment lands, a look lingers, a situation shifts. Something gets inside, not because it is powerful, but because the inner gate is open. Throughout this phase, you learn to close that gate gradually. First, silence removed momentum, then boundaries stabilized behavior, then calm prevented absorption, then the surface became unreadable. Now we arrive at the final threshold, where reaction is no longer delayed, but unnecessary. Emotion may register, pressure may appear, provocation may test, nothing transfers, because nothing has permission. This is not suppression, it is sovereignty. You are no longer managing responses, you are no longer controlling displays, you are no longer guarding composure. There is nothing to guard. Emotional untouchability begins when the inner position is complete, when approval is no longer required, when resistance is no longer needed, when influence finds no entry point. Most people think strength is resistance. The Stoics understood something deeper. The strongest position is the one that cannot be entered. If you still feel pulled, provoked, or pressured, it is not because you are weak. It is because dependence still exists. In the next phase, we will examine what happens when emotional dependence is removed entirely, and why true power begins only when nothing external is needed to remain whole. Emotional untouchability is not built by defense. Defense implies threat. Threat implies vulnerability. The Stoic method removes both. Most emotional disturbance comes from one source: dependence. Dependence on approval, dependence on outcomes, dependence on how you are received. When dependence exists, external events gain leverage. A reaction appears, a judgment lands, a response is expected, and something inside moves. This is not because the event is strong. It is because permission was granted. Emotional untouchability begins when permission is withdrawn. Not forcefully, decisively. The Stoics did not harden themselves. They completed themselves. They reduced need when nothing external is required to validate position. Pressure loses function. Insults lose aim. Praise loses pull. Chaos loses gravity. This is the mechanism. When dependence dissolves, emotion still registers, but it does not command. You feel without following. You notice without obeying. The center no longer negotiates. This is why nothing can touch you. Not because the world softened, but because leverage disappeared. In the next phase, we will reframe identity itself and show how emotional independence becomes the final seal that ends reactivity entirely. Emotional untouchability is sealed at the level of identity, not through control, through completion. Most people build identity outward. They define themselves by response, by reception, by outcome. This creates dependence. When identity needs confirmation, emotion becomes negotiable. Praise inflates, criticism wounds, rejection destabilizes. The Stoic correction was internal. Identity was anchored to what does not fluctuate: principle, judgment, conduct, not to how one is seen, but to how one operates. This changes everything. When identity is internal, external signals lose authority. They are noticed, but they are not consulted. You do not ask the moment who you are. You already know. This is why emotion no longer sticks. There is no surface for it to attach to. No need to defend. No need to prove. No need to correct perception. Reaction dissolves because reference is complete. This is emotional untouchability at its core, not resistance, not suppression, independence. In the next phase, we will translate this identity into lived presence and show how emotional sovereignty expresses itself naturally in everyday situations without effort or vigilance. Emotional untouchability must function in real life, not as an idea, as a posture. Situations still occur, people still react, pressure still appears. What changes is reference. You are no longer asking, "How does this affect me?" You are asking, "Does this require action?" Most situations do not. Emotion may register, information may arrive, the body may respond. None of this initiates movement, because movement no longer comes from external stimulus. It comes from internal alignment. This is emotional independence in motion. You listen without absorbing. You observe without internal commentary. You decide without urgency. Nothing is rushed, nothing is forced. This is why composure becomes visible, not because you are trying to appear calm, but because there is no internal pull. When praise appears, it does not inflate. When criticism appears, it does not wound. Both are treated the same, as data, not direction. This is not emotional flatness. It is emotional freedom. You are free to act without being pushed, free to speak without defending, free to remain silent without tension. This is what it means to be emotionally untouchable in practice. In the final phase, we will integrate this into identity completely and close this chapter by defining what unshakable presence truly is, where nothing external is required. This is where the arc completes. Emotional untouchability is not distance from life. It is completion within it. You are no longer regulating reactions. You are no longer managing composure. You are no longer guarding boundaries. There is nothing left to guard, because nothing external is required to remain whole. Pressure may appear, judgment may arrive, attention may be directed toward you. None of it relocates you. Emotion registers, but it does not negotiate. Events inform, but they do not command. This is not indifference, it is independence. You are no longer moved by approval or resistance, not because you reject them, but because you do not need them. This is emotional sovereignty. The mind no longer asks, "What do they think?" It asks, "What aligns?" That single shift ends reactivity entirely. This completes unshakable presence. From silence to boundaries to calm under chaos, to an unreadable surface, to emotional untouchability. The next phase goes deeper, beyond managing emotion, into power that comes from needing nothing external at all. That is where true strength begins.